This is Free Zone Radio.
From Free Zone Radio, I'm Jason Crockett, and this is Second Stage. For the past month, we've been celebrating America's 250th anniversary by looking at plays that explore different corners of the American experience, the promises we make, and the dreams we chase, and the realities that we sometimes find difficult to confront. Well, this week, we wrap up that series with American Son, Christopher Demas Brown's gripping 2018 drama. If you haven't seen it, it is a tough play. It unfolds over a single night in the waiting room of a Miami police station, where two parents, Kendra and Scott, are desperately searching for answers after their teenage son, Jamal, goes missing following a traffic stop. What begins as a search for information quickly becomes a powerful argument about race and family, identity, and like all the complicated ways we experience America. Now, this is a play I didn't know anything about before I stumbled upon it in searching the internet, but it's such a good play. Christopher Demas Brown is a Miami attorney turned playwright, and he wrote American Son after years of thinking about the tensions surrounding race, policing, and communication here in modern America. The play premiered in 2018, and it moved to Broadway later that year, and it's been adapted into a Netflix film with the original cast. The play stars Kerry Washington, which viewers might recognize as Olivia Pope from Scandal. To talk through the play, my co-host Drew Haston and I took advantage of one last sunny day of summer vacation before our school year begins. And we met here on Tennessee Tech's campus, recording outside with all the sounds of late summer still winding on around us. Speaking of conversations that are circular and going nowhere except bringing up more pain and recrimination, Christopher Demas Brown's play American Son. I wanted to pick 4 plays for the American experience, and by request I did Hamilton, so that was fun and uplifting. Then we went into A Raisin in the Sun, which was more struggle, but also
a little hope.
A little bit of hope, yeah. And some great humanity that was in there, too.
Yeah,
like
it was real.
A really good slice of humanity.
Yes.
I like that. And then I went into Angels in America with Mark Creeder, a more modern take. And now here we are landing in 2018 on American Son. So we've come through all these chapters right up to recent in American history. Yeah. And I had never heard of this play before. I was digging through and I was like, come on, what are some good plays for the American experience? And this one kept popping up. I thought, I don't know anything about it, but let's look at it. What did you think of the play?
Gosh, very heavy. Very relevant, very nuanced, very gray area. Which I feel like is kind of a place you and I live politically a lot. Yeah, I don't really, I really don't know if I'm going to have the words to really describe it, because there were times where I agreed. One character would be going, I'd be like, yeah, that's right. And then the character would respond back to them and I'd be like, well, yeah, he's got a point about that. So it was very conflicting, which I think was the purpose. It was very convicting. I don't know. That's probably one of the worst responses to a question you've asked me. But it was just, I think the complexity of that question and the difficulty in that answer reflects the way that play brought about its messages. But like I said, I'm not saying that critically. I think that was intended that way.
Well, and I don't know, because I wrote that down in my notes. what the heck? This guy puts me into two different sides of the argument, like where I'm sitting over here and I'm getting mad at her, but I'm also sitting over here mad at him. Or I'm sitting here listening to this cop and it's like, come on, you inept fool. But then I'm over here and I'm like, lady, I understand, but you are antagonizing the situation, and that's not going to help. Yeah. So I think that's pretty clever in how he staged an entire drama that allows you to be on both sides of the argument, which Kendra says to her husband at one point. She gets real upset with him and says, can you not see it from Jamal's perspective? Can you not just understand him?
I think that's probably what our playwright was going at, was he really kind of brought to the table on this issue, I guess, I don't know how, I'm like trying to be careful with my words, but I guess like the best points of both arguments, both sides of the arguments, to show that maybe it would go a long way if we just tried to understand each other. Do you know what I'm saying? I think that is probably what was going on there, because it's like I said, I mean, him and his wife from the get-go are getting into it, which they're estranged, and he's living with another lady.
Yeah.
But right from the get-go, it's just nonstop fighting, and it's exhausting. Golly, it's exhausting.
Exhausting.
And look, there were times, I don't know how you were, but there were times where I was kind of like, okay, when are we going to move out of the police room here? Like, do you know what I mean? I was like, when are we going to get out of the waiting room and like move to another scene? And we never really did.
No.
It was just nonstop argument the whole time. But again, I think that's purposeful.
I agree.
Because it's reflective of America, right?
Yeah.
Right now, we can't. And even I feel like even they were reflective of America, and there were some brief moments where we were getting along, and we were like, "Oh yeah, we used to love each other." I know. And but then that would quickly turn into, "Yeah, we used to really be in love with each other until you left me for someone."
Well, the play begins in isolation. Because it's just Kendra, the mother, waiting in a police station at 4 a.m. She's alone with her phone and no response. You're getting no response from your messages, from your phone calls. Her son's been missing for hours. They argued last night, and now she hasn't heard back from him, and she's feeling guilt and horror.
She's a black mom, so immediately
all the nightmares are coming to mind.
Immediately, you were like, okay, I think I know where we're headed here.
But then the cop comes in, and he's also equally unresponsive, just like that cell phone where he's not answering any of her questions, and he's not being helpful either. The play begins with a quote from the writer Ta-Nehisi Coates, and the quote is, "But race is the child of racism, not the father." Like, it starts with that quote, and then it goes into this. Obviously, this is a play about race in America. It was written in 2018, or it was produced in 2018. So here's this country where obviously we have problems with race, problems with inequity, problems with having conversations about it. But I also live in a 2026 where here we are 8 years later, and we're still having problems with race. We're still having problems with conversations about it. You can't even have the conversation without one side saying, "Oh, here he is woke. Here he is, gone woke again. You're always making something out of nothing." I think it's a very valid story for right now. The play begins in isolation. It's just the mom. But I also noticed that because there was, in 2019, Netflix made a movie out of it. Did you happen to see that?
I saw that, but I didn't watch it. I watched I told you it was a reading from a small theater. I don't know where at, but they chose this during the pandemic, 2020. So it was kind of interesting. They did it via Zoom.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Mark was talking about that the other day too, how they had to resort to a similar thing.
I kind of liked it because it was like an audiobook. In a sense, so. The
4 actors from the Broadway play appear in the Netflix movie. It's the same 4 actors. Kerry Washington, who played Olivia Pope in Scandal, plays the mom, Kendra. Then you got Stephen Pasquale and several others. It begins in isolation, but in the movie, it's very obvious that there's a thunderstorm and rain going on outside. And because of you and I being who we are and what we read and what we talk about, I was immediately like, hold up, why a thunderstorm? Why do you think? Why a thunderstorm?
Well, it's chaos, and that's what we're walking into, essentially, is chaos. I mean, I feel like the last few storms we've had here have been just absolute downpours, the last couple ones, and you can't see but like 10 feet in front of you, you know, and that's kind of what's going on with her. She really can't see anything. She's in the dark. It's hidden from her. It's chaotic. Just nothing can happen in a storm, really. Everything shuts down, and that's essentially what this cop is. I don't know. I don't want to skip ahead too far, but she finds out about her son at the end of the very last, like, 10 lines. And I think it was supposed to be almost like this, maybe, I don't know, maybe it wasn't like a big, like, reveal, you know, but I think from the get-go, with all the elements in place, you know, your son is not coming home. Like, you're not going to find him how you like. You can tell the cop is running like a protection plan, you know, like that was what I was thinking the whole time was, you've got information. You're either not wanting to tell her because you're a little bit of a weenie, or you're protecting someone above you. Because it did seem like sometimes he was trying to just pass it off, right? Well, that happened at nighttime, and we gotta wait till the nighttime guy gets in here. So, because I don't know, but
yeah, there was a lot of Sturm and Drang with them in their conversation. Also with her and her anxiety and fear about what could be happening. She just came out of an argument last night with her son Jamal, and now I don't know where he is. And I agree from the beginning. You know this is not going to end well. You've got the anxiety that the mom has. The anxiety ramps up when the cop is not answering your questions. And so I felt thunderstorm was chaos. But you're also just left sitting here with the rain streaming down the windows. And when I've asked kids in class before to think about rain, like what is rain supposed to be symbolic of? I think a lot of times I get kids who say death. And it's like, whoa. Why would you say death? A lot of times rain is also supposed to equate life, because rain makes corn makes whiskey. It makes things grow, right? Rain is life-giving. And they'll say, well, every time there's a funeral, it's raining. Well, no, not every time there's a funeral, it's raining. But in movies, they often depict it raining during a funeral because it's like tears from heaven.
Well, and for me, when you talk about at the opening of a movie, especially with a topic like this, I immediately think of a noir. Immediately, you know, because why is it raining? And they're in L.A. and it's been raining for a week.
Right.
So, you know, and I just think that I think there's something ominous, you know. I think it's kind of like when you're looking at these archetypes and you're looking at the woods or forest, and you like, and we're seeing that with Lord of the Rings as we're reading through this summer, is you've got both sides of the coin. You've got beauty in a forest, right? You and I have hiked in probably plenty of forests and played in forests, and there's beauty there and there's life there. But then also you and I have been in a forest probably a little too late. Yes. And it's kind of like, the booger man's going to get me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got to get out of here. And I think that that's the same thing with rain. Yeah. You've got the death aspect. You've got ominous because, right now it's fairly sunny, but if the clouds, if it clouded up really quick, we both would be like, we got to hurry up and get out of here. Yeah. You know? And it's like that with corn. Yeah. You know, you've got the evil archetype of corn, but then also we saw with Shoeless Joe where it was good that comes out of corn. You know,
there's a duality.
Yeah. So
there's also a duality in the characters and in the stories here. Absolutely. You literally have black and white.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's an obscurity that comes with the dark, a grief with the rain, a chaos with the storm. And then she finally meets the cop, Officer Larkin, Paul Larkin, who from the beginning seems incredibly unhelpful. And I had written down, is this on purpose? Is this guy being unhelpful on purpose?
I felt like he was.
Or is this just engineered stupidity? Like, is this just like, I really don't know what I'm doing? Like, is he in over his head too? But you think he was being unhelpful on purpose?
I think so. Yeah, that's because immediately from the beginning, I was suspicious, I think that he was playing dumb. I think like I said, maybe I don't know. I don't know if I want to go as far as cowardice, but I mean I can remember taking some phone calls at Averett and people when I was setting appointments. People saying, we had an appointment for 12 o'clock. I set it with you, and my freight is not here. And then I'd go check it, and it would pop up in red. It was so bad. It would say TNF. Total tendered non-freight, which meant it was lost. They had lost it. And you would see that screen and, you'd put the person on hold and you would just be sitting there thinking,
how do I tell them?
How am I going to get around this? Because I don't want to be cussed out because I'm sitting in Tennessee and this freight is in Orlando, right? Like I genuinely had nothing to do with this. And if you called the people in Orlando, they would just kind of be like, yeah, we can't find it.
Right.
Because it was like a policy. You cannot send a call to these guys. So,
policy can be a helpful thing, but it can also be something to hide behind.
Right. And so you would sit there and I mean, I would be lying if I wouldn't say, you know what, just real fast, be like, you know what, Orlando, they're working on it right now, and they said they'd get back to me, and the guy that's on it, he's gonna and we'll see if we can get you a phone call soon. All right, thank you, bye. I didn't want to do that a lot, but if I just got like cussed out the call before, I didn't want to do that again. So I don't know if it's like cowardice or not, but immediately I was thinking, okay, this guy knows more than he's letting on. But also, that's that Perry Haston. Perry Haston.
So I've read the play, and then I watched it, and then last night in prep, I watched it again with April, and we got to this part, and she said something about being racist, and I had to pause, and I was like, so do you think the cop is racist? Is that? And she's like, well, and he seems to be, right? Like he definitely seems to be if he's just not willing to help. But then she's like, but of course, what can you know about a person? I only see him in this one interaction. And I thought, that's right, babe. We would have to see how does he react in the company of other people. We would have to see other circumstances. That does change.
I was just say we do get a little bit more.
He keeps saying that we have to wait for the AM officer Stokes to come in.
Yeah.
And when she's off stage, a white guy with a badge shows up, and Officer Larkin begins dumping everything out of his head. He says, he calls her some unnice names.
Yeah.
He says that she went from zero to ghetto in no time flat. And you could just tell this guy is definitely holding back stuff. Then she comes back in. Scott goes to stand next to her and says, where's our son? And suddenly it's, shields are up.
Yeah.
I don't know anything, sir. I don't know anything. Liar.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like that gotcha moment. Also, though, I think that goes into, this is talking about duality and both sides of the coin and not understanding the other side and all these things, because our little officer here just assumed that the AM guy was going to be a white guy, and he's not. When he shows up, that was like for me, watching it on that Zoom when Stokes pops in, I was kind of like, oh, because let's be honest, we weren't expecting that. Of all the twists or surprises in this play, I think that the author tried to do, that was one that really I think was beneficial and worked, because that just like reinforced that. Because when he showed up, I thought, okay, this is about to get real interesting, because we're dealing with a black kid, and he's intentionally 6'2". He's a large man, and which we read about, unfortunately, in the news about those guys, like what happens for those guys, and it's awful.
Yeah.
And it's not fair. But he I don't know, it was just kind of like, you knew that was like a game-changing moment when Stokes shows up. The status quo as as John Voight's character, right? Not, is that John Voight? Wait, who is it? It's in National Treasure. Is that John Voight?
Yes.
Yeah, John Voight's character says the status quo has changed.
I appreciate that Demas Brown doesn't, I hope I'm saying his name right, or Demas Brown, that he doesn't leave it at just stereotypes. I think, like Geoffrey Chaucer, he begins with some stereotypes, but there's a lot of nuance that goes into them. The mom is a black mom, and in this circumstance, she's a separated single black mom whose son is missing and potentially involved in a crime. Stereotype.
Right.
Here you have white cop who doesn't want to help, seems very unhelpful, he's being patronizing in his talk to her. Stereotype.
Right.
But then he keeps insisting, I empathize with you. I have kids. I understand. And she brings out a good point. Do you have a black son? Do you have a 6'2" black son who could potentially be? Because otherwise, do you really understand how I feel?
Yeah.
And I thought that was a good point for me. I asked Mark Creeder a couple of weeks ago, when you're working with a play like Angels in America and you're having conversations about what it's like to be homosexual or Mormon or whatever in America, if you don't have that background, how do you have the authenticity to direct a show like that? And he said the same thing, that I should still be able to direct a show even though I don't have that experience with it. Can't I be part of the conversation? But it's also valid for us to tap the brakes and think, am I going to be like Dr. Mather in Sherman Alexie's Indian Killer? Am I appropriating?
Right.
Do I have the authenticity to teach Native American history when I have no background in it?
Yeah.
I can study it, but I don't know it. And I thought, this is a good point. Am I allowed to say, I understand where you're coming from, when really, do I understand?
I think that we understand sometimes. I think that officer thought he understood because he had kids. Because I could see myself trying to be empathetic and saying that too, and having to give the same response. Like, do you have a 6'2" black son? Well, no, I have 2 daughters and a white son, so I think though with this play there were stereotypes, but then they were like flipped on their heads a little bit. You were talking about a single mom, and the stereotype is, well, the black dad's left, but it wasn't a black dad that left, it was a white dad that left.
Right.
And not only was he a white dad, he worked for the FBI.
Right.
He was a cop.
But he's fulfilling that stereotype by walking out on his son.
And then you've got, like I said, we're waiting for the AM cop to come in to get information. And I think that we all fall into that trap of expecting a white cop to walk in.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's a black cop. And I think that he used these stereotypes, but I don't think that he did them distastefully. Like I said, I think he used them as a way to kind of say, I think it just goes into like that, what I was saying earlier, where there's so much gray and nuance, and we're trying to show both sides here and how we're just not at an understanding at all. And I think that he used these stereotypes and kind of flipped them to show, like, okay, we are connected more than you think that we are, and we can understand things to a certain extent, Because look, I don't have a 6'2" black son, but I can be empathetic if my son was missing and, you know, I thought that something had happened, right?
But
like,
not be patronizing to the mom where it's like, look,
Right.
I get it. Stop yelling at me.
I guess like, yeah, like I would understand for a black mom in that situation, the panic.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying? I would understand that.
Yes.
Because I did think about that when he's kind of like, just go home, we'll call you. You know, and as white people, we probably would be like, you know what, you're probably right. We'll go home and they'll show up. Because what does he say? He's like, he's doing teenage stuff. He's probably been out with the girl. They went parking.
That's what I was doing when I was a teenage guy.
Elbow.
But it's also like, Larkin, you were not the same America
Right.
that this kid is.
Yeah.
But that's also nuanced because Kendra is not just a single mother, stay at home, and she's an academic. She's a PhD, and
Right.
her husband's an FBI guy.
Right.
And the funny thing is when the husband does walk in and they get into their argument, he says, look, all's I'm saying. And she stops him and is like, no, you're not allowed to say that. And he's like, whole nother thing. She's like, no. She corrects him on his grammar. And it's like, she said, our son does not speak Ebonics. You don't get to speak white trash. And I thought, oh my gosh, look at the distinctions here. We've got somebody who starts off as a stereotype, but you are way more a human being than that. The father is so consumed with his son fulfilling family tradition. My dad went to West Point. Our family's always served. Jamal needs to go to West Point. That's the expectation. But Jamal feels consumed now. My father left me. Just like so many other stereotypes have fulfilled. Well, here's mine fulfilling for me. And she says that he cried. A 6'2" man cried in her arms like a baby for 3 nights straight because his father abandoned him. And now Jamal, who's one of only 3 black kids at his school, sees these atrocities happening on the news. And every time he becomes the face of the race for the kids at school.
Because he's at a nice private school in Miami.
Right.
They're living in Coral Gables, which, I mean, I'm a little familiar with Coral Gables. That is like the rich, affluent neighborhood in Miami.
He drives a Lexus?
Yeah. Coral Gables is where the University of Miami is, which I think you associate with sports, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't think people realize that that's like a really high academic private university. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I don't think people realize that. So to be in Coral Gables at a private high school is, I mean, that's kind of, I think that's what they kind of talk about too, is that's like getting into the American dream territory.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, the dad even says, we've dropped $250,000 on schools for this kid.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm saying, though. You know, she would say something like, he's free to express himself and he's free to find himself. You've left him. And you're like, yeah, that's right. What are you doing? And then he'd be like, yeah, well, I'm also spending $250,000 to make sure that he goes to the best private schools. And there's a way that I expect him to act because of that. And it's like, yeah, you know, like that's true too. That's true. Like I would probably be saying the same thing.
I keep pivoting the hip and being like, well, that's right. That's right. You tell. She kept getting so antagonistic with the cop that I think it's really easy for a white audience to be like, oh, of course she's being angry black mom. But it's like, dude, look, she is a mother, black or not. It's 4 a.m. She had a terrible, awful, worst fight of their life. They both said things that they wish she could. She says, I wish I could pull out of his head and bury in the ground and never hear again. Like, you're never going to be able to take these things back. She is a mother and she is terrified, and like there's so much background. There's so much generational issue. There's so many hundreds of years of crimes against the skin color.
Yeah.
That it makes it so much more difficult to say, just comply. Just comply.
Well,
because I see a lot of certain white people that I'm not going to say political affiliation who say just comply, who don't comply when they get their car repoed, who don't comply when the cop's like, oh, you're being trespassed because you're drunk. I voted for it. Don't matter.
Yeah.
Just comply.
I think for me, when I was seeing her get fired up, I mean, I know that was a stereotype he was going to, but I kind of I did empathize with her a little bit because it's like, I hate to say this, but something that Mary Beth and I have kind of learned in the last like few months has been, if you can't anymore be this person who is like complying, like where it's like, you know, I need you guys to come out and check my air conditioner unit. The electricity ran through it. Well, you know, we'll get out there when we can. It's kind of, okay, no, I need you to get out here right now. Do you know what I'm saying? Like we've been baking in 85-degree heat. I've got 3 kids. I don't care where you're at. You can get out here or I can call someone else. Like you hate to be that way. But do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I really do hate to be that way. But stuff, sometimes people will take advantage of that, you know, and you don't want to be that person. But that's what I was thinking when she was going off on this guy. I was like, you know what? If my son was missing and I was being told wait and see, I would be just as angry. I would be just as angry. I would be in there demanding and saying, I'm not moving and I am not shutting up until you give me information or take me out in handcuffs, because that's what's going to have to happen, because my son is missing and I'm not going to sit here and listen to some dopey white dude tell me, I understand, we'll find out soon, right? And so I mean, for me it was like legitimized.
Well, that happens with the dad.
Yeah.
He finally gets tired of Larkin's ineptitude and just wanting to be hanging out with the cool cops right now, and blows up. And they've seen a video that his brother sent him that could potentially be Jamal at a traffic stop where gunshots were fired. I don't know. It's more thunder and storm. And finally, Stokes shows up, and the situation just erupts into put him in handcuffs, read him his rights. And I thought Stokes did a really articulate, amazing, clarifying job for everybody involved when here he is, the high-ranking black officer, talking to the mom, and she says, well, aren't you just some Uncle Tom capitulating to the white guys? And he said, lady, that would play a whole lot better if I hadn't just dragged your white husband out in handcuffs.
Yeah.
Like, the expectation is that when a traffic stop occurs, all other rules are suddenly suspended. This is a whole different scenario. This is not everything else in America. This is this moment right now. Do not antagonize the situation. White, black, male, female, whatever we are, let's suspend the rules right now and just go through with the traffic stop. He said, she keeps insisting, I want my son to assert his rights. And he says, lady, you got no rights except the right to shut up, be silent, and let's go through with this traffic stop right now. He will not argue with her. He says, I am not going to compete for your attention. I will tell you what I know. I will help you, but I'm not getting caught up in this. It was a good reminder to me, too, that I don't exist in the same America that they do. And he says the same thing. Your husband and I, we are not in the same America. Your husband just got put into handcuffs. He's an FBI guy. This may or may not be something for him. But if I had done that, it'd be a whole different story. Teenage Jason Crockett got pulled over for the first time when I was in high school. And I was driving my friend's car. And I guess we were just going a little bit too fast in Jamestown, but I was driving my friend's car at night. Cop pulls us over. And I didn't know exactly like what to do other than just, okay, let's be still. And my friend was like, well, what are you doing? Get out. And I said, get out. And he's like, go talk to him. I was like, go talk to him. And he said, do it. Go talk. And I felt so anxious and pushed. I was like, okay. And I opened the door, stood out of the car, and the cop was already walking toward me. And I saw him put his hand on his gun and go, whoa, stay right where you are. And I was like, I'm going to get shot because my idiot friend is telling me to do this right now. Kids, I don't care if you're white, black, 90, or 19. You stay put, you put both hands on the wheel, and you talk to the officer, or you shut up. Those are your two options.
Well, and you know, the video, first off, let me back up a little bit. When her husband is talking to Larkins and they are kind of chummy, I think that just kind of goes into more of that nuanced duality. because she was like, oh, so you're going to talk to the white guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of it was that, but I also think it was like that brotherhood aspect. Do you know what I'm saying? Where he's like, oh yeah, you're a cop. I want to be in the FBI. Like, and I think that, what was the husband's name? Scott. I think Scott was trying to patronize him is what I think.
That's what I was thinking. I didn't think this was really fraternity.
Because he was like, I put in a good word for you. Because
I thought that was him greasing the wheels.
Yeah, because I was like, you don't even know the guy. You're not even going to remember his name when you leave. And you know, I think that again, that's that duality of stereotypes, assumptions, not completely understanding. You know, because Scott, when that Larkins guy leaves and she's getting after him, he's kind of like, can you just chill out and let me do my thing for a minute? You know, which of course they fight about everything.
Yes.
You were talking about him saying all's I'm saying. You know, I did think that was a good moment to show, like, hey, yeah, you know, we hear people say that all the time, like, don't talk like that. You know, she says the Ebonics. You can't use Ebonics. You can't speak white trash. But I also thought it was a good moment to show how far this marriage had gone.
Yeah.
Because I love my wife, but if we last night we were talking about, I was sending a text and I was trying to figure out was or were, you know, and I was like talking to her and we were kind of talking through it, and I just told her, I said, I just grammar has never been, ironically enough, grammar has just never been like a strong suit of mine. And I don't know if it's my dialect. I don't know if it was because I grew up with a country dad who just didn't care. Do you know what I'm saying? But if she corrected me nonstop, like if we were at that point, it would be miserable. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, It would be miserable. You know, I'm sure I say stuff all the time and you're like, well, what, dude? But if you corrected me all the time, I guarantee you I would not be sitting here do you know what I'm saying? I'm sure I've said stuff on this podcast. But so I think that's like a good example of how far that marriage had gone to, and then they argue nonstop. So you know immediately this is toxic, this is volatile, and that's reflective of the situation going on in the police station. It's just that the whole play, you were talking about the storm, makes sense, right? The whole play is chaotic and just volatile, and you just don't really know what's about to happen.
And this is America.
It is.
Like you kept saying this marriage of theirs, and I thought, yep, marriage of a civilization, marriage of different peoples to make a population. You think about who we are as a culture. I
am planning on putting a Jerry Green for governor sign out. But I can't put it in the ground because the last time I did that, I put out an Obama sign. The last time I put like a presidential election sign out. And the reason I don't do it anymore is because my neighbors turned it inside out. And it was like this back and forth for a couple days. And I finally just took it home and hung it in my room. And I told Mary Beth, I was like, I think I'm going to put it on the mailbox because if you mess with my mailbox, that's a felony, right? But then I thought, am I just asking for people to ball bat my mailbox? You know, it got shot one time, like a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. I think it was just random. I don't think it was like I think it was just probably somebody driving by just, but do you know what I'm saying? So you're talking about that. Yeah, that is where we're at because you can't even just like do your thing.
Well, they can't have the conversation.
Right.
It keeps falling apart. At first, she keeps ramping up with Larkin, and her antagonism is dialed up. And you know what? I get it. You may be justified in how you're feeling, but it's the whole asserting your rights. It's the whole you're tweaking a situation until Larkin erupts at her and screams, "Quit shouting at me!" And she suddenly freezes and like, okay, I'm sorry. And you think there was a split second that almost turned violent. And so now we've crossed a barrier. Let's dial it down. She begins recrimination again.
Yeah.
And then it amps back up. She and Scott do the same thing until they finally get to a point where he says, I don't think we ever agreed on anything. But then it's like, no, we agreed on this. We liked this. We liked Thelonious Monk. We liked Cormac McCarthy. Yeah. She says. But then they get into argument again. Is it something that this marriage, is it something that this population, is it something that this America can ever talk about? Can we ever get over it?
Well, I think let
me take that back. I don't want to say can we ever get over it. Can we ever deal with it?
Well, I am not a marriage counselor, but I can tell you something that could have been said to them. They were on a good ground where they're saying, well, we like this, and we like that, and we like that. Okay, let's stop. That's enough. Let's stop right there, and let's just sit for a minute. But like I said, it turned into, we like this, and we like this, and we used to like going to the park, and we used to like going on the beach, and then we stopped doing those things because you left me, right? And it's just like...
But can we heal? Because he left.
Yeah.
You left me. In addition to all of these other things, you left... She says, you left me for a white woman.
But that's what I'm saying, like... And I think it can be the same thing said politically, right?
Can we ever heal from this?
If you and April were estranged and you guys were on the phone talking to each other and you had a moment... And I'll say this about my wife and I. Because he says, I don't love who I'm with, right?
Right.
So I think that there is this thought of, if we could ever reconcile, I would prefer you over anybody. Do you know what I'm saying? But you can't stop getting on about my
conversation.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I feel like that there's got to be that awareness of, okay, we've taken a few steps here. Let's just be quiet for just a minute. And I now that's the question for me. Can we ever be quiet enough? Do you know what I'm saying? Can we ever let our neighbor just put up their sign? Can we ever let our neighbor just kind of say their thing and we agree and just say, all right, let's end it there for today? Because I think that those are the steps in any relationship, if you're estranged from your friend, if you're estranged from your worker, if you're having problems, do you know what I'm saying? Like that's the first, it is not going to, that's what I'm saying. Like that marriage was so far gone. They're not going to reconcile. I mean, they're not going to reconcile over their son missing.
But that's my question. If the marriage is symbolic of America, are we too far gone?
But I mean, maybe I'm being optimistic, but I don't think so. I think that our leaders are a big part of that. I told Mary Beth, though, it would not be hard to go viral. Not be hard. I could go lean in real liberal and get fired up. Every book we talk about, you and I are just venting, which we do vent sometimes, but I think we do a good job of making light of that. You know what I'm saying? I could lean into that, or I could become a character and get real conservative and real conspiratorial, and and I told her, I think that that's what a lot of these pundits are doing. Mm-hmm. I think that they're characters because they make a ton of money doing that. And I think we got a Truck Schultz situation to where I'm gonna split and divide America in this character that I am, and then I'm gonna go home to my gated neighborhood because I don't care if
I don't have to pay the consequences.
I don't care.
I don't live in that America.
Right. I don't care if gas is up. I don't care if the tariffs are driving up energy costs. I don't care if, do you know what I'm saying? Like, they don't have to deal with that. So they create these characters, and I think that drives us to be against each other. And that's what I'm saying. Like, do I think that our country could heal if we could get some of these talking heads to shut up? You know what? I do, Crockett, because you and I have been doing this Hills and Hollers podcast, which we've got to do some serious editing on. But the people we have met, would not agree with us politically, but we have had the best time with them. Do you know what I'm saying? We have met some great people, and we have learned so many things, and we have been a part of our culture in Tennessee that we love. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think that there is an issue from dang, I was about to pull in my fancy PhD speak. Oh, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Oh man, this would be the perfect time to it's the two-step theory, though, is what it is we've got these community influencers. You and I get our news from another source, and that is we are that second step to where we disseminate those same feelings. Do you know what I'm saying? We don't really emanate our own feelings. We release their feelings. And so I don't know. I maybe I'm optimistic. I just think that it is possible. But
how do you make people listen?
That's the thing.
About 10 years ago, we had an election that kind of surprised a lot of people on how it resulted.
It didn't surprise me.
Okay, but it did surprise a lot of people that, okay, so this is really how it's going to be. And I remember going to a fellow teacher's classroom the next day to get something, and she was talking to her students about it and said, Mr. Crockett, what do you think this election demonstrates? And I don't know what she thought I was going to say, but I said, I think it demonstrates that we're doing a whole lot of talking, but nobody's doing a lot of listening.
I agree.
And I think the election was mostly just, let me throw a wrench into this machine and see what happens.
But do you know what I have noticed lately is the fatigue?
Yeah.
The fatigue, not just from, I think we try, or at least I do. We try so hard to be apolitical when we talk on our show, but
they always get.
You can't hide it.
They always spiral.
I think the other side is getting fatigued. I think so. And do you know the point that I noticed was when he made his speech about the 2020 election, no one paid attention. No one paid attention to that. Only the hardliners paid. Only that 30% of America that's saying, I think he's still doing an okay job right now. No one paid attention. 2 of the major news outlets didn't even cover it, which I just want to say really quick, because the thing coming out was pull their licenses. Joe Biden had a speech that ABC and NBC didn't show. Barack Obama had a speech that ABC and NBC didn't show. It is commonplace, just FYI. Anyways, I think that there's fatigue.
There's fatigue in the characters of this play, too.
I think that,
where they get so fired up, and then you could just see, I'm exhausted with having to fight about this again and again. But
that's the worrisome thing, though, is the fatigue leads to them getting the death.
Yeah.
And it's too late.
The fatigue, but also some foolishness. And again, Jamal was making some really bad decisions that he would not have been making if other things had not gone wrong in his life. And, Lieutenant Stokes says it really well, that if you had not been doing some of these things, if he had not been doing some of these things, lady, we wouldn't be here at 4 a.m. having to deal with this right now.
Yeah. I was just laughing because I was thinking about when Stokes shows up, that's really when the scenarios come up to where, because she's like, you and I both know that he can't just comply. You and I both know that they were calling him the N-word on that video. And you're like,
she says,
that's right,
I heard it. Yeah. I saw it.
Yeah.
And the cop says, you don't know what you heard, because that was a black cop. And what you heard was a bystander filming it who was saying it to them.
Yeah.
So how many times did we say, well, I saw it on the news. I saw it on Instagram. I saw it. You don't know what you saw.
That goes into this guy. Man. I'm trying not to just rant, because I've done that on the last few recordings I've done with you. But that's just like the biggest problem is people want to comment online on stuff that they don't even know about. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's the perfect example of that, because when she says that, you are like, yeah, Stokes, and you, of all people, you should know that. And then he's like, the cops that arrested him or pulled them over were all black. And then it's kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, oh, well, maybe he does have a point. Maybe we should have just listened. So that goes into what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Don't comment on things you don't know. Don't talk about it because you were not there, right? When we get the information, then we can talk about it. And people don't want to wait. That's the problem, was we have no patience in our society anymore.
And as it comes to the ending, she gets really upset. They're remembering how they first met, and it was in a garden at a party, and there's a flashback to a little red bird that was between them.
Oh, yeah.
Because he gives her the lame pickup line of, that bird was the second most beautiful creature in this garden.
Oh, I thought he was going to go with are you from Memphis? Because you're the only 10 I see.
And then the bird flies away. And I was thinking, okay, if I'm teaching this in a classroom, what's that bird? Emily Dickinson, who's misquoted by the inept Officer Larkin at the beginning of the play, Emily Dickinson really did write that hope is the thing with feathers, right? That perches in the soul.
Yeah.
That here is this little bit of hope. So it made me think, is this supposed to be a comment about us, about America, about this marriage? Is there hope? Because the bird flew away. And at the very end, even though we've said, you and I like Cormac McCarthy and they made this boy together, and she says, you're never really coming back home. I know you're never coming back home. And that's when Lieutenant Stokes comes in and he recites the awful details. And it almost reads, I was reading that Demas Brown, he was giving an interview about his craft as a writer. And he says that as far as dialogue goes, you try to find these opportunities where you can write adroitly so that dialogue can communicate poetry without being so artificial as standing there reciting a poem. And Stokes at the very end is reciting the awful, tragic details in a clinical way, but at the same time, it's just unfolding travesty into the awful certainty that we already knew was there.
Yeah.
I thought that Stokes and Kendra both had some really articulate, I don't want to say artful, but meaningful moments of bringing clarity to the situation. He was talking about how the traffic stops can be the most terrifying thing, that these are cops. They have kids, that they brush their teeth just like you and I do. They are parents too. And his family had been to Vietnam. Your family's been to Vietnam. Like we've been through. But the most terrifying thing is walking up on a car and not knowing what's in there.
Yeah.
And here she's also experienced terror. She says, I've never had a full night's peace since Jamal was born. I wake up at this same time. And if I teach this, that's a spot I'm coming back to. She says, for years, I wake up at this time, at 4 a.m. I wake up with my heart pounding. I'm full of terror and anxiety. I've had a nightmare, and I have to go stand in Jamal's room. I have to touch him. I have to make sure that he's breathing so I can tell myself it's just a nightmare. And my Lord, here he is, 18, and the nightmares come true at this time, and he's not coming back. You're not coming back home. And it just, the play ends.
Yeah.
It made me wonder if Demas Brown, I kind of wanted him to come here and sit so I can just ask him, dude, what's your final takeaway message for this play? Are we never coming back home? Yeah. Is there any way to fix this?
I think for me, like I said, first off, shout out to the only cicada of the summer.
That's our co-host.
I think that the message in this play was really about just trying to understand, the other side, right? I think that that's what is going on, and it is, he was naming off some names. Stokes was like Philandro Castile and all some like throwbacks that you hate to hear about, and you just remember like the George Floyds,
which happened the year after this became a Netflix thing.
And I just think that understanding and empathy is possible. I think that it makes people uncomfortable because if I need to understand my neighbor, I have to slip into their shoes for just a second.
Mm-hmm.
And it may not be somebody that I'm either A, comfortable with, or B, like. I might not like this person, right? And I think that empathy makes us uncomfortable, and understanding makes us uncomfortable because it's hard,
Yeah.
It's hard to do. And when you're frustrated, like people in this country are, right? We're frustrated. We're frustrated with one way. But again, that goes in that understanding. I know that the other side is frustrated with things that they see.
Yeah.
Right? And I get it on both sides. But you don't want to understand because it's easy to rage. That's the easy emotion to rest on.
Well, understanding would require some accountability too.
Right.
Some admission of maybe I've been doing this wrong.
You've got to be able. That's one thing Scott never says is, I am kind of to blame for this. Because dads, like, we have to be there for our kids. You and I see it every day. How many kids walk our halls raised by their grandmas, right? You don't have to be a perfect dad. I am not a perfect dad by any means. I have said things to my kids this week that I wish I would not have said. But I try to be present for them, and I try to be supportive. And sometimes that's all it takes. And I think that's what, you're talking about accountability. It's tough for me to sit here knowing this podcast is going to go out and say, I should have said that to my son. I messed up and said something to him, and I should not have said it. And as soon as it came out, I knew I was raging and was upset at him. I thought that he had crossed the line, and I knew when I said it that I shouldn't. Do you know what I'm saying?
Do I know what you're saying? You mean, have I ever done the same exact thing in the last week with my daughter?
Right.
Where I lost my cool, pushed way over the edge, and said things that I wish I could take out of her head and bury in the ground.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. It's hard though, right? It's hard to sit here and say, I messed up, but sometimes it's hard to do, but we do have to say, I as a left of center person understand that you're concerned about these things, right? I get it. And maybe I don't agree with those as well, but I feel like this is the best solution. Instead of being like, you pig-headed sack of crap.
In Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, the lesson is true men pay what they owe. And you didn't want to have to show up and surrender yourself to this event, but if you're a real man, you have to pay what you owe. You have to show up and fess up. If you mess up, you fess up, Steve Taboo says.
And you move on.
And you move on. So here, we as dads, we as Americans, we as human beings really do need to go out of our way to listen more. At the end of this yesterday, I was kind of like looking out the side of my eye, watching for April's reaction because it's such a horrible, abrupt ending.
It is.
And she just looked at me and I was like, and she said, how are people supposed to recover from something like that? And I said, right.
Yeah.
Right. So out of the 4 plays that I've done for America 250, I think this one is the one I'm most eager to bring to the classroom because it's the most unknown. This play, I think, might be the most second stage play I've done this month. And I'm really eager to bring that and that question to the classroom. How are people supposed to recover from something like this?
Well, I would say to that too, when you think about like Philandro Castile and you think about George Floyd, how much farther would we have gone as a country if people would have been willing to say, you know what, he probably should have lifted his knee up, right? He probably, when he said, I can't breathe, he probably should have backed off a little. Like, yeah, he messed up, right? Like, we still support the police and all this stuff, but he messed up. Like, how much farther would we have gone if our leaders and these talking characters that I've been talking about earlier would have said, like, this is not, instead of just doubling down on, well, I don't understand why you're so upset. The guy's a thug, right? That's what we kept hearing. Thug, thug, thug. Maybe he wasn't a thug. How much farther? And so how do you get over that? What this play is talking about. There's got to be some understanding and empathy on both sides. Like, I hope that I've made that clear. Like, it's got to be both sides coming to the table. And you were talking about us as dads. I have to step up to my son and admit my faults because I want my son to grow up to be a good man. Therefore, I have to try to portray what I think a good man looks like. And the same thing has to go for our country. Our leaders and our talking heads and our influencers have to step up and meet each other and represent that, because people watch. And dude, the stuff that we hear from some of these people is just stuff that's been parroted. Yeah. And it's like, you don't even believe that. Do you know what I'm saying? I know you. You don't even believe that. But I'm not about to correct you, because then that turns in, you're just going to parrot. So how do we get over something like that? Again, what this play is saying is take the time to understand. Don't rage, right? Don't rage. It's credible. It's credible. But sometimes how much more constructive could it be if we sat down and try to actually think about something for once instead of reacted? I reacted to my son. That was a reaction. And that's where it gets you in a bad spot. Yeah. So,
but America, we love you.
I love you, America.
I love you.
I love you. I'm proud of you.
Second Stage is a Free Zone Radio production, produced here in Sparta, Tennessee. What actually is Free Zone Radio? A group of content creators, teachers, readers, and classroom experts who make shows for our students, for other educators, and for anyone who likes a good read. If you enjoyed what you hear, please be sure to click like on this episode and subscribe to the show to follow for more. If you have ideas for us, send them to freezonradiopodcasts@gmail.com. That's freezonradiopodcasts, plural, @gmail.com. And be sure to listen to our other show, With Honors, and our brother podcast, A Dead Man's Books. All of them available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to great content.
Hey everyone, my name is Drew, and I want to talk to you about my show, A Dead Man's Books. The show was created with the mindset of whenever I pass away, as morbidly as that sounds, that my children would inherit my books. And of all the things that I'm going to pass down to them, I think that that's the one thing that I want them to make sure that they keep and go through on their own time. But I want to be there next to them whenever they read these things. And so I created a podcast so that they could go back and listen to me and my friends and other people as we read through these books and what we had to think about it. But it's grown to so much more. We've got authors we interview. We talk about everyday life. We talk about how literature connects to life. All of those things in one place. And now we want you to come along with us and join us. This is a podcast not just for my kids, but for everyone who loves to read, everyone who loves a good story, everyone who's a parent, everyone who's a teacher, everyone who just enjoys literature. This is a place to come. So come join us every Monday on A Dead Man's Books.